Hi, Victoria Alai here with EveryoneCounts.World. I'm so excited to have Ellie Hadsall here talking about her book called Conquering the Winter Blues. And that's something that a lot of us could use about this time of year. So without further ado, I'd like to bring on Ellie Hadsall. And just, Ellie, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Glad to be
And
here.
I'm glad you're here. And I'd really like to know a little bit about yourself before we get started talking about your book, Conquering the Winter Blues and everything. Tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about the Winter Blues to get started.
Okay. So I had a 30-year career in human resource and development, so self-development and helping people to do that. And I worked with individuals and organizations and corporations. So that was my background for my career. And then I went into another career for 10 years where I was an education administrator of an alternative healing school. But all of them called forth certain skills that I have developed over the years in my training. And everything that I trained people with, I first tried out myself because, you know, growing up, we all face challenges and we have those years, especially starting middle school for a lot of us. For me, it did when I doubted myself and I didn't feel sufficient in the world out there. I compared myself with everything out there and I didn't measure up. But I found, yeah,
Join the crowd.
I haven't met anyone who really hasn't gone through some level of that. But I connected with self-help books. We were fortunate in the 60s and 70s and 80s, more books like that were available. I read them, I worked with them, I took them and I did what they said to do and I practiced it to see if it worked. And I gradually expanded my comfort zone and my skills with it to the degree that as I continued to work with it as a career, of course, I had to constantly listen to other people and go to other seminars and develop myself. I've developed myself along the way and I found tools that really make a difference. I've seen examples in my clients and in my students in the classes, as well as friends and relatives who've either done it because of my explanations to them or their own figuring things out and what worked and what didn't work. And so over the years, I've compiled a whole list of different things that can help raise our vibration. And that moves us out of depression. It moves us out of negative thinking. It does a lot of things. But I finally teaching how to move out of the winter blues. I found a way to explain these to people that help them in the winter climates that we live in. I think my own personal experience was when I had always lived in Kansas, where it was very sunny most of the time, and we would have cloudy weather, but not overwhelming. And then we moved to a northern state. It was actually northern Indiana. and we would have weeks and weeks of cloudy weather. And the snow was beautiful, but then it turned to gray and it was dirty and it was grungy. And everywhere I looked, there was nothing but different shades of gray. And it was like, where's the color? I didn't have any color in and it got to me. And I can remember driving down the street one day thinking to myself, if I'm gonna turn my car south and I'm gonna drive south until I see the sunshine. Because
Oh, wow. It got to you on that level.
I almost felt claustrophobic, like I couldn't breathe. I had to have.
Wow.
And then my mind skipped back to what happened to me when I was in my early 20s when I had my first child and I had postpartum blues.
Interesting.
And
Is
they
there a
were,
similarity between those a little
there
bit?
was in the way I felt. It was deep depression, different causes, different situations, but the way I felt was depressed, overwhelmed, no joy, no motivation, no inspiration, and just I felt like I just was desperate for getting outdoors and fresh air, but it was winter time and so forth. And so when I had the postpartum blues, my husband was in the Army. There wasn't anywhere I could go or anything I could do. I tried to breastfeed her, and that was not done in those days, and nobody knew any support. So I tried to do it on my
Interesting.
own and struggled with so many things. And I went through 9 months of really severe depression, and I didn't have any help. So all I did was I had to figure out on my own what to do. And I decided that I just had to live my day as if I were positive. I could
So
not.
faking it. The fake it till you make it philosophy is
Absolutely.
what you started with. It sounds
I
like
did.
that was your
Absolutely.
starting point.
Absolutely. So every day I got up, I put on nice clothes and I did makeup and hair. That was in those days. That That was
You
kind
still look nice with your makeup in, might
thank you.
add. Yes.
So I did. My husband was in the army. We would go to events, and I would be perky and nice and everything, but inside I felt insufficient, and I had, that was a new thing to me. So anyway, I discovered that was because of hormones, and my hormones eventually settled down, and I was back. But I literally felt like I was back. It's like, where had I gone during those 9 months?
Wow.
I
So you
didn't.
tell me some feelings. Give me a list of you felt isolated. You
I
felt
felt, I felt nobody understood me. I felt ugly, and I'd never felt that before, not to that degree. Um,
wow.
I had acne again, which I hadn't had, and I'd had bad acne in high school, and I was gone with that and loved it. Was no there anymore. I didn't have it anymore, and it showed up again. Um,
Oh.
I had a baby, and I didn't have the slim, trim shape that I did before, which I was renowned for my slender look, and I didn't have that
So
anymore.
you had that as part of your identity and
My
part of your
self identity.
without even realizing it, you probably took it for granted all those years before you had your child, and then it was like realizing, "Wow, I didn't know how much of my actual self-worth was tied to
To
an
my
image,
breasts
a
and my
physical
image.
image."
Yeah. And my husband was busy and he didn't have time for me. And I didn't want to be a whiny wife. So I kept it to myself and I would cry when no one was around and take care of, but I had a baby and I had to take care of the baby. And that caused me to get out of myself because I could remember my mom's voice saying, you just need to get over it. you
Oh,
know,
that's the way they did it in those days, isn't it?
it was like, okay, this is, you suffer and that's tough, but ultimately you just need to get over it and move on. And so I did different things, but I thought about, and there wasn't internet. So I went to the library and I didn't know what to look for. So I just looked for things that were positive. And I really focused on positive things, positive thinking, positive things. And then I started wearing more colorful clothes instead of I wanted to wear grays and blacks and browns. That's what I felt like, but I made myself
Right.
wear aqua and salmon colors, the colors that were in those days. I made myself wear bright colors and I opened up all the windows to let in lots and lots of light. And I did a whole lot of
Oh.
things that really helped.
Now this is something that started with, "I'm just going to fake it." Now, where did you get this idea to just say, "I'm going to act as if I'm doing better or I'm myself. I'm going to act as if." Did it come from a book or something, or does it just come to you? Did
It
it
came
just
from books. I read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie Training. I actually had a career in that business for 8 years. And I read, oh gosh, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. There was a lot of books that came out in the 60s and 70s that were forward thinking.
Right.
There was parent effectiveness training came out during those days. There was, gosh, there's so many books, but as I read the books and then I would talk about it, I would work with it. And then later on, when I saw it started to benefit, that just became the way I was. I was not interested in going back to be a victim anymore.
So you after you got out of that and you came back to yourself, like you came to, in a sense, you
Yeah.
came to back to yourself, you were like, "Okay, I'm not going back there." If it and so you really realized that was the fact that you got out of it was like, "Hey, this is not everybody gets out of it like this. This is a situation." And so the self-help books really helped give you some kind of it gave you directions or suggestions. And so
Yes,
you
it did.
started taking
Yes.
those suggestions and seeing which ones worked. And interesting to me, isn't Dale Carnegie, wasn't that written in the 1930s, like during the
Yes,
Depression?
yes, it
And
was written
so
in the early. It's to this day what it teaches is very valid. Psychologically, what it did for changing your mindset and the way you believed in yourself and others, it was really worked. And these days, people laugh at us old fashioned and everything, but a lot of those old books were the beginning of the same thing that you hear now over and over again. If you hear people talk these days, they're saying the same principles, just new language.
exactly, and that's what we do is we absorb, we learn, and then we find a different way to put a different spin on it. And so basically, this is what your personal story was and where you came from. So you have real experience dealing with the not just the winter blues, but long-term depression that wasn't clinical. So maybe tell us a little bit about where you'd like to go now as far as you want to you've written a book on this, but I wanna know a little bit more about what do you cover, like short-term depression, long-term depression? What are the
So I don't feel qualified to really help people out of depression. I had my own personal experience, and I share in this book what helped me do that. But I think anyone who has clinical depression or ongoing depression needs to get counseling. And there's a lot of good counselors out there, and we can talk about that later another time. But I think counseling is very helpful. But ultimately, whatever the counselor does, you have to change. You have to do something different than you used to. You have to think differently, and you have to make different choices and responses to life situations than you did previously, or you stay stuck.
One of
So
the core thing yeah, sorry to interrupt. One of
that's
the core
okay.
things I hear you saying is that, especially in the beginning when you were starting to get into self-help and trying to figure out what to do, is you literally had to follow the directions and you couldn't use your feelings as a guide, is what I'm trying to say. You could not, and I've heard that before. One of my mentors said, "You can't judge how well you're doing based on your feelings. You're always doing better than you feel." And so the big thing is that's what I hear was your total starting point in the core, in the beginning stages, is that you just were like, you know what? I don't feel like wearing aqua, but I'm going to wear aqua. So not only did you basically do things that you weren't necessarily what you felt like doing, but you just were like saying, I think I'll do this. But on top of it, you did it throughout different areas of your life. So go ahead and continue. But like you did it in clothing, you did it in your opening your windows, you did it in your food, I imagine. You did it
my
in
be- and my behavior, it was like I didn't feel like going out and doing things, but I went out socially and did what was expected of me, and I did it as if I had confidence and was interested in people. And I learned that you don't have to worry about impress someone in conversation. You ask them questions, get them talking about themselves, and they feel really happy. You have a great conversation and you learn some things and you meet some wonderful people. So I learned how to make conversation by listening. So I did, and these all came from books that I read. And I would read a book and it said, do this. And I would think, I've never done that before, but okay. I remember one of them was I read a book and it was about how to communicate in meetings. And we were involved in church at the time. And I would go to a class at church, our Sunday school class for adults. And everyone would contribute to the conversation and people would talk about what they said. And I would say something and nobody listened to a word I said. I thought, it was like, nobody hears me. And so I read this book and it said, if you're going to say something, have an incident that you can explain for proof or statistics or something to back it up and say it, tell them what you're going to talk about, then say what you're going to talk and then sum it up at the end. So I learned different pieces and
ah.
I started practicing that just in our Sunday school class. And within 6 months, I was on one of the boards, which I didn't intend to be. But I found
Right.
this stuff really works. But nobody said, here's what you have to do. I figured it out because I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to be in charge of my life as best I could. So when I was later years, when we lived, then I was fine for a number of years, and then we lived in Indiana. And I found that day when I was driving, and I was overwhelmed by the cloudiness, and I was felt desperate. And then I thought, wait a minute, you made it through 9 months. What did you do when you were postpartum? What did you do? I went home and I started remembering what are the different things I did. And I started actively doing them. And I got so involved with life again and things I was interested in, keeping a gratitude journal, all of these things that I
Right.
had heard to do. I started doing them again. And I found pretty soon I was happy. I didn't even notice the weather anymore.
That's
I,
interesting.
I think some people, but in my book, and I did write,
Yeah, can you show us
Mhm.
your book?
Sure.
I'll be putting a link to it and tell us where they
Okay.
can find it and everything, but and also what motivated you to write this book.
This is it. It's over
Oh,
6.
wonderful. I love that image.
Thank
Oh,
you. A deer, a male, a stag, is known as a very powerful totem to move you through the winter and give you lots of creativity and strength to come up with new ideas and to charge forth those kinds of things. And they work their way through the denseness of a forest, which can get in their way, but they work their way through with their antlers and make it through. And they're just a wonderful demonstration of what I think this is about because you have to work your way through it.
oh,
And one of my spiritual teacher, Roy Eugene Davis, said, "You don't do what you feel like doing; you do what works."
oh.
It's very similar to what you said in the beginning. You don't do what you feel like doing, you know. So I went from waking up in the morning to having a mood and then being in that mood all day to waking up in the morning and deciding who I wanted to be that day and acting that way. And then you get the feedback from other people and the world around you that reinforces that. And so what you were originally acting out becomes you.
Exactly, and so you act your way.
Hmm.
into this different thinking and feeling
Right.
versus just trying to think your way in
Right.
to this different way or try to change your feelings or something like that. You
That's
act
right.
your way
That's right.
into these new feelings and these new behaviors. And I wonder when you were going through that, if the people around you in Indiana who were also experiencing the same winter blues in the weather might not have been empowered by some of your actions without you realizing that, that you may have actually had a positive impact on some of the people around you, not even just
Well,
your clients.
it could be. I was very active in the community, but I had two children. I had a 5 year old and a newborn. And I remembered that when I would have the postpartum blues, I had to be something for my daughter. I couldn't be what I want. I had to do something for her to have an example of a mother that was vital and inspiring and excited about life. And
Oh, wonderful. So they're like
see
short,
them.
targeted. Yes.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
It's very brief. It's very brief and targeted. We'll just open up to a page here and see air out your home, grow plants indoors.
Air out your home and grow plants indoors are two of the suggestions.
Mhm.
Interesting. So what you've got here is more of a field guide to winter blues. It's like I personally am addicted to field guides. I love all self-help, but I particularly like field guides. But to me, that's what I see is that it's like, can you give a couple examples of some of the chapters just to give us an idea of the types of things that
I will, and then I'm going to go into a few of them that are really key in depth.
Okay, go ahead. Whichever
Okay.
you'd like. You can go ahead.
The importance of light, getting light into your home and into your eyes,
Tell
into
me
your
more about
pineal
that.
gland. That helped me that way. And so I always have done things for my children, if not for myself, but that always makes me change. So I think what I did when I wrote this book, it's basically things I've taught over the years, working with clients and in classes. And I think I have 22 chapters. Yeah. So your attitude and your outlook, how you see yourself as a victim or a champion of your life, the importance of counseling if you really have desperate situation, nutrition, self-care, electronics, exercise, pets, social environment,
Oh.
activities, music, self-actualization, your emotions, breathing techniques, chanting techniques, self-massage, candle gazing, meditation. It just goes on and on.
Oh
But
my gosh. All I feel is this book is just whether you're going through the winter blues or not, it certainly sounds like
yeah.
that if you really want to have a more balanced internal life of any kind, that a person could take a look at some of these tools and maybe just use the winter month as a time when you're inside to recharge yourself a little bit for the new year. So even if you're not into like a major depression or something like that, it still wouldn't hurt. I mean, those things sound very much like an oasis to me, like, oh yeah, I could use some more light. I could use some more candle gazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they really are. And so many of them are things that we already do when we feel like it. Okay, so if I feel like, oh, I think I want to light some candles and have some aromatherapy because I feel like that today, that's great. Do it. If you're having a day where I just get so depressed, that's a day to light some candles and have aromatherapy. You do it because it worked, and then that brings you out. The most important thing is to get more light because this is a physical response we have to a lack of light in the winter months.
Ah, so there's a biological piece to it, is
There
what you're
is a
saying.
biological piece. It has to do with our melatonin, which is, I know people take melatonin to help them sleep, and they talk about that a lot. But ultimately, the melatonin is what sort of handles our biorhythms. It handles our sleep and wake cycles. And if that is out of balance, then we are out of balance. And we need light in our pineal gland coming through our eyes, our retina, that goes to the pineal gland, but it also is absorbed through the skin. So even people who are blind can gaze at the sun and have benefits from that. So the
Interesting.
light comes in, and then that your pineal gland controls really everything in your body as a result. So your glandular system responds according to the amount of light that you're getting, which it triggers certain aspects of your brain, which affect the glands, and then the glands affect the organs, and that affects everything. So it's very important to get light regularly. The majority of people these days, unless they're really into nature or they live somewhere in a climate where it's sunny all the time, they don't get enough light. And
Oh.
as they would if we lived in the way we were originally created to live in more in nature. So even on a cloudy day, you get a lot of sunlight.
They're finding that out with solar panels.
Absolutely.
That
You're
even
still
if you're in
getting
the
it.
environment, yeah, it still picks up light even if it's a
It
cloudy
does.
day. So, what you're saying is that these are wisdoms and realities that are hardwired into our bodies, into our minds, into our glands and things like that, and that all we're doing is accessing what we already have.
Yes. So we find a way to get that light. So we don't have it. So some people, the only light they get in the winter is to going to and from work or to and from the grocery store. And the rest of the time they're in their house around
Yes.
electronics and a lot of things that lower your vibration. So I'm going to talk about vibration frequency here in a minute. But so the light gives certain frequencies that affect our energetic field. We are not a physical being. We know that science tells us we're an electromagnetic field that is condensed down to a density where our eyes are equipped to perceive it as an object that's solid, but we're really not. So anything that affects frequency affects us. So having insufficient light affects our frequency, our light frequency of our body. So what we want to do is we want to have uh, curtains open, blinds open. Now, most people who are depressed, what do? They close their blinds, they close their curtains, they close down, they stay inside.
Go under their
So
covers.
you need to get out and you need to open those curtains, open those blinds. If you want privacy, you can get sheer curtains to let the light in, but you need the light in. So that's the most important thing. Second thing is if you can afford it, get full spectrum light bulbs in all of your lights.
More
Like
about that. Yes.
full spectrum light bulbs have the full spectrum of light like sunlight does. Most of our light bulbs, incandescent and LEDs are much better, but incandescent, which we've used through the years, only they have a limit. So you have a spectrum of light that's this wide, that's natural. When you're using light bulbs in your home, you're getting a spectrum that's like this.
Interesting.
So you're not, and it may be more blue, it may be more yellow, but you're not getting the full spectrum. So if you get full spectrum light bulbs, then they have the full spectrum. So they're a little bit more expensive, but they are worth every penny. My sister taught third graders in Canada, way up north. And every winter, she would suffer from winter blues as well as her students. And they would get sad and they would be behavioral problems. So when I learned about the importance of full spectrum bulbs, I shipped her a shipment of them for her house. And she took them and put them in her schoolroom. She put them in her classroom. That was my sister. She was like, those kids need it more than me. And she saw within a few days a change in their behavior.
Wow.
So she went to the school and asked them to put them in all of the classrooms, and they said no. So she always had them in her classroom, and then I sent her some more, and then she had them in her home. And she said, oh my gosh, it's a world of difference. Next thing
Are
is,
they labeled? Let me ask you, are these you could get these as LED lights. Are they labeled full spectrum lights or
most of them are actually incandescent up to this,
oh,
but they're now creating them in LED spectrum. So most of mine over the years were incandescent, which costs more electricity, uses more electricity.
right.
But if you get just an LED bulb, actually has a wider spectrum than a typical incandescent light bulb. So you're getting more of a spectrum just with the light and LED. So I tell people if you can't afford them, you can just go online and you can do a search for full spectrum light bulbs and you'll
Okay.
find all kinds of
Okay, that
brands.
sounds great.
My book, I recommend a couple of brands that I know, but there are a
Wonderful.
lot more now. And then but if you can't afford that, just get LED bulbs and replace all of your lights with LED bulbs. So when I get up in the morning, if it's cloudy, and I don't really need to do this anymore because I have moved out of that space, but I still do it because I don't know, it might be a day when
It's insurance.
my husband and I, we turn on the hall light, we turn on our bedroom lights, we turn on the bathroom light, we have all the lights on upstairs. And then when we go downstairs, whoever goes down first turns on all the lights in all the rooms downstairs. So we walk around our house in the mornings with lots and lots of light. Then once we're awake and we're up and we're into our day, we can go back to turning them off and if we don't need them. But if I were depressed like I used to be, I'd have them on all day long. And it's worth, if it costs me more money in a month, what's that compared to depression pills or not being able to do my job or anguish or all of the the trauma that we can feel. So those are really important. Light. I can't say enough to get enough light in your house. The next thing you can do is if you're really seriously having winter blues, you can get what's called a light. It's a light lamp. It's about maybe 5 by 8 inches, the
Mhm.
small one costs probably $60, but it's a bright light and it's sunlight light. It's all the full spectrum. And you put it in your room when you get up in the morning and you have it shining as if you have the sun in your room. And it will get into your skin, it will get into your pineal gland, it will get into your eyes. And you don't stare at it, you
No.
just have it kind of with a side, and you will get the benefits as if it were. And once that gets in your system and your pineal gland absorbs it, then you start getting benefits in your brain waves. Everything starts perking up. Then you can turn it off. It's getting you started.
And what I do in the morning is I just start to meditate right away. I just go right into it, a couple little phrases, and then I go into meditation for 20 minutes. But I could see adding like a light like this as a form of a meditation or doing during a meditation or something like that.
I think for me, because I do meditation every morning and every evening, I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I do some breathing to wake me up enough so I don't fall asleep when I meditate. And then I meditate. And then I turn on the light because I want to meditate when I'm still, my mind is not engaged in the day. But
Yes.
once my mind is, I've finished my meditation, then I'm ready to get engaged in the day.
So do it as a separate thing, maybe after you've done your meditation or your first
Yeah,
things. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, go ahead. This light sounds wonderful. And again, you're probably referencing this in your book as well.
I am, and I give some recommendations of what brands you can get that I know are good. There's probably other ones, but I know that they're really good. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is I alluded to it earlier that everything is vibrational. Depression is a very low vibration. You'll find different charts online, but this is a synthesis of all the different charts I got from counselors and so forth.
Okay.
Okay, so this isn't
Great.
in the book, and I'm trying to get it over here so it doesn't have the light. Okay. But it's the lowest one is depression. The lowest one
Right,
is
right.
apathy, depression, disempowered, despair, grief, hopelessness, and powerlessness. That's the lowest vibration. Your frequency is really low. And when your frequency is that low, you don't engage in life. You're just hanging on.
Right.
So if you can do things to raise your vibration up just a little bit at a time, to where you eventually get up to here and then you can live up here all the time. And
Right.
barring any unforeseen, unexpected things, I'm up there most of the time. But I've worked to get there. So the highest level is people say love. Love, that's unconditional love. That's
Right.
cosmic love that has no judgment with it. So the appreciation, empowerment, freedom, joy, love, and passion for living are the highest. And
Oh,
so some of the ancient texts that talk about how to be someone who is divinely inspired or living in the divine energy, they one of the qualities it states in the Bhagavad Gita is brilliance of confidence. That one
ah,
has brilliance of confidence. And that is a sense of certainty that you are aligned with what works, what supports you, and everything around you, that everything is harmonious and supported by this sense of well-being that you have, and then you use that sense of well-being as the basis for your choices, your decisions, your actions, your thoughts, and then the vibration that you emit supports everyone around you and everything around you to be that higher vibration too. So ultimately, when you raise your vibration, you aren't just doing it for you, you're doing it for everything around you because everything is connected energetically.
that's an interesting point because it seems like starting the journey, it's very self-focused of,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
yes,
in a pit here of depression. I'm feeling that hopelessness. I'm feeling low energy. I'm at the lower vibration and everything. And so the starting point, at least with me anyway, it was like, how do I dig myself out of this
yes.
kind of a And I was more into anxiety and phobias and things, but I'm sure I had depression
They're
as
all
well. But it was a
related.
point of like not knowing. I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't have any training in how to lift
Exactly.
myself up. And
Yes.
so it starts with a personal decision of I'm not going to be the victim. I'm going
Yeah.
to be at source in my life. And that doesn't mean I have to know everything. And then what it sounds like though is as you go up the vibrational scale, you're starting to then impact others around you too, instead of just needing, I need the light, I need the help, I need
Yes.
the support, I need the therapy. It's okay, now I actually can give back a little bit. And then that giving back reinforces the higher level,
Yes.
is what
Yes.
I have found. And
Yes.
so I feel like you, I'm mostly in those higher levels today,
Yeah.
but it started down here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we
and
did our work. We had to do
we
our
did
work.
do our
It
work.
was not easy. We had to do things that weren't comfortable, but we were told they worked, so we tried them out and we became skilled. It's like when you learn tennis, you aren't good at it. You have to try it and make mistakes, and then eventually you get skilled at it. It's the same thing with these techniques that we're talking about.
It's available. It's not a mystery. And I think that
No,
the thing I like about your book, and I've read your meditation book and it's incredible. Of course, I learned
thank
meditation
you.
from you years ago. But one of the neat things is that it gives them the shortcuts that you've learned
Yes,
yourself through all
yes,
these years. And it's amazing to me just how you've been able to get to that higher vibrational level yourself and now give back on such a level that it's the cliff notes, so to speak.
yeah. I hadn't thought of it,
They
but
still
yeah,
have
I
to do
went
the
through
work. They still have
it.
to do the work, but it's like there aren't too many books that are like yours that are succinct, to the point, clear, fun, the way you communicate and everything.
It's and these things are fun. It's if you're depressed, if you have winter blues. Like I remember a woman talking to me, and she said, "I don't have anyone to spend the holidays with. I don't have any family. I'm so lonely on the holidays, and I get even more depressed. And there's not going to be any sun shining over Christmas, and I just don't. I'm so depressed." And I said, "Do you know anybody else who's like you that doesn't have any friends or family?" She said, "Yeah, I know a couple of people, but none of them ever invite me over."
There you go.
What if you invited them over? Well, never done that. Okay, so let's look at what could you do and how would you do it and who would you call and what would you create. So we figured out she would have a potluck. She didn't have to do a lot of work. And these are the six people that she would call, and she'd be okay if they said no. We have to be okay if they say no. There's nothing wrong with you. And so she did that. And I think she had three show up. They had the best time, and they became really good friends. And so then now she had a social group. She had to do something different, and that one thing like that can shift you enough that you want to do more, and then you want to do more, and then you want to do more.
Exactly. That's how you start to raise that vibrational
Yeah,
level. Is at
yeah,
first, oh, it's the holidays. Those are really depressing to me. I'm all alone. I don't get invited anywhere. Then you get the idea from a book or from someone like you to actually, why don't you throw your own potluck for some other people that are in the same boat? Suddenly you're all raising up. And then it's like next year, it's okay, we've got a plan. So now the holidays are covered. So you're automatically at a higher vibration than you were the
yes,
previous year. And it all
bingo.
builds. And one other thing that is occurring to me is I'm a big person for food as medicine. What I'm hearing today is, some of these techniques like vibration is medicine, light is medicine,
Mhm.
food is
Food is
medicine. So
mhm.
these are some things that are basically built into our DNA, built into our bodies
Yes.
and so tell us more about
Yeah.
what you have found.
One of the things is your environment have lots and lots of bright colors. A few years ago, way back, it was having dark greens were the thing, and then it was grays were the thing, and then browns and mauves were the thing. That's okay, but if you're going to have, we had a house one time that we built and we ended up selling it, but we had the walls were kind of a smoky taupe that was all the rage. But one of them was a bright salmon. This is in Albuquerque.
Well, it would fit in Albuquerque.
Oh, wow. So you had the comfort, but you also had the sparkle. And so get rid of the dark, drab colors. I don't care what the style is. Okay, if you have gray walls and you have to have gray walls, have cream colored curtains or have yellow curtains and have a yellow rug. Bring in the sun colors, the salmon, the peaches, the yellows, the oranges, the reds. Bring in the colors of the sun and wear colors that are lighter. Don't dress yourself in grays and browns and black if you're depressed. That's what people go to. And a lot of people in northern climates all winter long. Now I know it doesn't show dirt and it doesn't show the snow stains, and it's practical, but you can have something bright and colorful with it. If you're going to wear a black coat and black clothes, we'll put on a red cap or something. Do something
Right.
to sparkle yourself up. Wear some jewelry. If you're not a jewelry person, then there's other things. You can find things like that. So you can put colors and pictures on your wall and rugs on you. You can put colorful cushions on your couch. Get some bright, light colors. Just because it's winter, we oftentimes go to decor that's winter shades, but that's the very time, if you get depressed, that you need to have summer colors. Just do your living room in seaside colors in the
Right.
wintertime. You will be amazed at how that changes your frequency, because all of these colors I'm talking about have a higher vibrational frequency, and that
Interesting.
affects you. That
What's
affects you.
amazing to me is everything we're talking about here doesn't really cost a lot of money
No, no.
either. These are just choices. What colors am I going to paint on my wall? Okay, a $40 gallon of paint or whatever
Mhm,
your currency is, wherever you're
mhm.
living. But essentially, that's another thing that we're finding here from listening to some of your experiences and tips is that these are all things, your vibrational level, what you tell yourself, your how you're going to the kind of light that you are letting in and the kind of colors you're wearing in your clothing. You could practically be low income, go to a thrift store and be able to still accomplish all these goals,
You can.
or have $1 million budget and be depressed and realize, wait a minute, I'm sitting around here in a gray painted room with black
Mhm,
curtains
mhm.
with, and so this is incredible.
And thrift stores have a lot. You
They
can
do.
find, and you can go online and look for creative things to make out of thrift store items. There's no, we've been where we didn't have the money, but I thrift stored, I thrifted, and I still do. Probably a third of my wardrobe, if not half, is thrift store items, because that's where I can find what I like, and I can find the colors, and I can play with stuff. You can
Right.
go, you can say to yourself, I have a brown couch and brown chairs. What could I do? I'm going to go to the thrift store, and you'll go to the thrift store and you'll find some turquoise and brown pillows. And then you'll
Right.
find some turquoise pillows. And then you think, oh, turquoise and brown, that's cool. And then you go over and you look in the rugs, or you look over something, you find a scarf that's got, and pretty soon you find some items on the shelf that are those colors. Pretty soon you go home and you still have the same couch and the same chairs, but you have a whole different look because you brought in colors that lighten things up. And another thing is having candles and having essential oil, wearing essential oil. There's essential oils that are really good for depression, to bring you out of depression. And you put them on your pulse points of your wrist, or you can put them with a little bit of rubbing alcohol and water in a spray bottle and spray it on your hair or whatever. Before you go to bed at night, put some lavender on a cotton ball, or rub some lavender on your pulse points, or I put it on your nose and around up here, and then on the bottom of your feet. The bottom of your feet have
Ah,
points that will really pick up the benefits of essential oils. So your pulse points, bottom of your feet, and your temples, and this area right here behind your ears. And so these are the things. Getting outdoors, getting fresh air is very important. If you're in an apartment and you can't get fresh air, you can't go in your yard, or you can't go out and sit on the balcony, you don't have it, you can open your window and get the fresh air coming in your window for a little
right.
while and get fresh air. If you live on a busy street, that might not be. You have to use common sense. That might
That's true,
not.
that's true.
But
Um,
you go for a walk around the block. Just get your eyes out away from your little world like this, and and I know everyone says this, but if you're depressed, go ahead and look at your phone and look at motivating and inspiring videos or things. If they pick you up, that's great. That's good, because that's high vibrational. But don't spend all your time looking about other people who are depressed and then commiserating with everyone else who's depressed, because that lowers your vibration down.
so you have to make a choice. It still goes back to that daily choice
Yeah,
as to whether am I going to be a victim to what I'm experiencing here with depression
that's right.
and the cloudiness or whatever, or am I going to be proactive and fake it until I make it and start trying some of these techniques that you're describing, even from just this video, they could take a few of these and just get started and then get the
Absolutely.
book. And it sounds like with what you're doing, that this is like a portal that you're opening them up to other resources through your book. You have some references, some,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
tell us a
Yeah.
little bit more if you like, or anything
Yeah,
else you were
sure.
thinking of sharing regarding this, because already I feel like you've shared so much more than what I've actually researched on this
Okay.
topic.
Okay. Redecorating your home. I mentioned that in enlivening colors. Another thing is rearrange your furniture. Stir things up a little bit. Get that old mold where you're stuck. Just stir things up. Rearrange your furniture. I know for years people always put their couches against the wall, and I did too. And then I got this. Wait a minute! I've seen magazines where they have the couch coming out into the middle of the room. How would I do that? And I did that. Now we do that all the time because I love the look.
Ah,
It's a more intimate setting. But rearranging your furniture, try something different. If you don't like it, you can always change it back, but try something different. In your bedroom, I think it's really good in your bedroom to let fresh air in during the day for a little while and open the window just a little, even if it's really cold out, just a
right.
little while, and then close it. But just get that exchange of air to get that
Mhm.
staleness out because that fresh air. Okay, this is a big one that I have a whole small chapter on this, and I think you and I might do a video on this coming up in the spring.
Great.
Clear out unwanted things. Clear out unwanted stuff.
Aha, clutter.
Clutter. Clear out clutter because
Tell me more about this.
everything that we have in our home has an energy to it. Okay. And that energy it depends upon where we got it, who owned it before us, who gave it to us. Are there any emotional connections with how we got it or whatever? And as long as we have that around, every time we look at it, even if we're not aware, every time we look at that cup that our ex husband gave us, and we love the cup, but every time we look at it, I remember him. There's a little bit of a, but I don't get rid of it because it's a nice cup and it belongs to a set and it's pretty and it matches my dishes. So we keep it, but there's that little zing. You can get rid of it. Everything that doesn't 100% speak positively to you. So this is a big job to do for most of us, but it's just start out with looking around you and take one room at a time or one closet at a time. And there's techniques on how to do that. But if you haven't used it in the last year,
Okay.
even if you think that you like it and you want it, if you haven't been reaching in and grabbing it and using it, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It's not your energy anymore. Because
That
when we change, our energy vibration changes. And everything that we had that we bought at a lower or a different vibration doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right anymore. Even though our mind says, oh, but you look so good in that. Or, oh, you wore that to work one day and everyone thought how cool you looked. If you aren't grabbing it, it's not your vibe anymore. That's why we need to get rid of all of those things. And the stories I have heard of, we've experienced, and a woman I know, she was a friend of mine and she had a divorce and she lived in a mobile home. They were a nice mobile home, but all the furniture and all the decor and everything was something she and her husband had done together. And he left her for another woman. And she was brokenhearted, but it was nice furniture and it was a nice home and she had this home. But it wasn't right. Her name was Dawn. And I said,
Mhm.
Dawn, what can we do to clear out everything and anything that reminds you of him? She started pointing things out, and it was going to be like three-fourths of her items. And I said, are you ready to do this? Because if you clear that out, that energy won't be draining you. It won't be sapping your energy anymore. And you will raise up your vibration. And not only that, you'll have space. And into that space will come all the things you want. What would you like your home to look like? He always had dark furniture and he liked wood and he was in the man look. I like patchwork quilt on the bed and lacy curtains at the window and plants hanging and all that. And he didn't like plants. And I said, okay, so if you're willing to have a garage sale, a yard sale, and get rid of all of your stuff, and I'll help you. And then we'll take that money and then we will rebuild what you want in your home. So she was gutsy and she did it. And so she earned like $900 with the furniture and everything. I bought some of the furniture and had it recovered because I liked it. But anyway, And then we let her borrow some of our folding chairs and our card table. And she borrowed some of our stuff until she could get what she wanted. But she went thrifting and she took her money and she bought a white table and chairs. We gave her a bed that we had that our daughter didn't use anymore and she painted it white. She got a colorful quilt. Her, you walked in and it was like a sunroom.
Oh my
It
gosh.
was absolutely adorable. And she
Oh,
was so happy. She just, but it took getting rid of all those old things that weren't her vibe anymore. Probably never were, but
right.
we have a lot of those things around us. So somebody gives you a gift, and then you think you have to use it. You don't. You can thank them. You can use it for a little while. I've had people give me gifts, and I used to keep it, and then when they would come visit, I'd put it out. You
Right.
know, and I finally figured out no. So now actually I've had people offer me a gift and I will just thank you so much. I'll take it. And I'm not sure if I'll use it or not, but if I don't, I'll share it with somebody else that really will want it. Are you okay with that? You know, I love that you gave it to me. And they're okay with it. They just are because that's the people I populate my life with now.
And that's another good point, isn't it?
Yeah,
The people you choose to populate your life with. And sometimes, they deselect themselves from my life.
it's
I
true.
don't actually, the more
They,
I like go up to the vibrations and pick what's important to me and everything, I don't get involved in gossip as much and things. And so
yeah,
pretty soon you see yourself looking around and I didn't even have to let go of any friendships because of the fact that I just changed my life and they
yes,
self-selected out
that's right.
some of
They
these people,
do.
and I still have love and care for many people that we don't talk as much as we used to,
Yes,
but at the
yes,
same time, that now we're talking about this is not just about getting over the winter blues. These types of things help you to create this foundation that helps to raise it that really is life-changing,
yes,
and as you said, you still do many of these things, although you're not feeling depressed like you used to, because of the fact that you wanna continue to feel good, and you also are just operating on that other vibrational level, and you're surrounded by people that are operating at
yes,
that vibrational level as well.
yes. And I think we got there. I know, I've watched your journey. I know what you've done to get where you are. And I think after we lived in Indiana those years, we ended up moving to Texas where there was a lot of sunshine. And then we lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where there was a lot of sunshine. Now we're back in Indiana again.
Right.
And it's the same winters, and I love them. There's nothing negative. I don't have winter blues anymore. It's the same environment, it's the same weather, but I'm different.
Isn't that interesting? And so you're kind of like an experiment. Like, if like, people can take a look at that. You were in one frame of mind and thinking one way and having certain actions and things in your life when you were living there the first time
Mhm.
years ago, and then yet as you're implementing these things and even living in these sunnier areas and learning about these different colors that they use in these sunny areas and everything and bringing them back to
Mhm.
Indiana, it's like you are able to be happy regardless of where you're
Yes,
living now.
yes,
Now you're
yes,
still probably making sure you go outside, you're still probably making sure the light is there, like you said,
yes,
you're turning on the lights,
yeah,
you're doing your tools that you need
mhm,
to do in
yes,
order to keep that going.
yeah, yeah. Just in case it doesn't sneak up on me someday.
Exactly.
And then I have to pull myself out of it. So better to maintain where I'm at by doing these practices. And so many of these practices, another thing I love about this book and the things that I've learned are, as you said earlier, everyone's doing them already. People already know to get out in nature. People already know to have to the incense is good. Certain scents are good for you. People already know to wear certain bright colors. We hear these things, but we aren't doing them. So when you intentionally do one or two of them, you'll get benefits. If you say to yourself, you read this book, I tell people pick three things that you aren't doing now that you think you can do and do them for 3 weeks. That's it, just 3 weeks. And then you will notice something is changing. And then pick you one or two more, and just piece by piece, you will expand, you'll raise your frequency and expand yourself. It's not, they aren't impossible to do. They're just maybe unfamiliar and uncomfortable in this situation.
They're new. And this is
Mhm.
the thing that I did learn years ago as I started my journey was get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And that helps, all these little things. So do you have any other thoughts of what you wanted to share today related to the winter blues or anything? Or are these some, definitely you've given us a lot of great ideas and starting points. You've referenced your book, so we know that's a resource. And I'll also put a link to getting the book. And where is your book available?
It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's also on some other selled. I never know where it's going to go. It's been on A Books. It's been on Goodreads. You can find it on some of them. Are carried with some of the like not Baskin Robbins.
Oh, Barnes and Noble.
Barnes and Nobles. I have ice cream and read my book. Oh.
So
No,
basically, if they just do a search, and I'll put the link to Amazon because we know for sure it's
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And so, is there anything else you would be liking to tell people before we sign off for today? Because I really am excited to have you back for other topics and other books that you've written.
Thank you. Thank you. I did say that I was going to mention some essential oils,
Yes.
and I'm trying to find where they are in my book. But lavender is good, rose is good, sandalwood is good for everybody. Um,
Some
okay,
of these are incense also, right?
yes. So bergamot is good. Lemon, orange blossom, grapefruit, and ginger, they're energizing and uplifting.
Mm.
Clary sage is known as an antidepressant. So just clary sage all the time. Lavender and ylang ylang. Ylang ylang is spelled Ylang. It's a
Ah,
very kind of a sweet, fruity scent. Some people really like it and some people don't like it at all. But I have a story with that I'll leave you with briefly. And then that we were at a funeral, and one of the daughter of the man who had died was weeping and sobbing next to me, and I was holding her hand and all. And I remembered I had some lang lang in a little container in my purse, and I pulled it out and I put some on her wrists and I put some on a Kleenex and told her to just put it up there and she immediately calmed down. And she said that
oh.
really, she carried that Kleenex around for her for days, and she'd pull it out when she started to feel grief. You need to feel the grief. I'm not saying to not,
Right.
but I'm saying it's no. Some people it really can be very calming and soothing. So all of these are beneficial, and you can go online and just Google for essential oils for depression, and you'll find a lot of information.
This is fantastic. And at the very least, if people try some of these things, they will be distracting themselves from the thoughts that come
Yes.
along with the hopelessness,
Yeah.
and it's not going to be different for me or whatever. And it's just amazing that these are such life force gifts that you're offering today for people of any background, because a lot of things such as addiction, depression, and the winter blues affect people across the board. I imagine that this is not one of those things that is limited because of where you sit in your life.
That's right. And I think another thing, there's so many other things I didn't mention today. There's a lot I didn't mention today because of time. One of them being electronics. Electronics really do a job on our electromagnetic field.
Let's take a
So,
minute. Just tell me a minute about electronics, because electronics are such a part of our lives,
mhm,
especially like people that might have mobility issues, for instance,
mhm,
or things like that, on top of depression, or maybe they don't have a lot of depression, just situational,
mhm,
but they have a lot of people are attached to their phones and they're constantly swiping and they're
mhm.
constantly engaged in something like that. Tell me anything vibrationally or about what you know about electronics.
There's a lot of controversy around that subject.
Sure.
Yeah, but I'm a big believer in it because electromagnetic fields surround us. Cell phones, the 3G, the 4G, the 5G, that's all going through there. If we could see all the frequencies that are moving through our space, we would be overwhelmed with microwave, stove, furnace. There's so many things. If you have a water meter, there's water meter readers, and they have this thing you can read it from the street, and that's all stuff. So there's floating all over us. All of that affects our electromagnetic field. So we need to do things that counteract that, and we need to spend time away from it when possible. So one of the things is getting outdoors, grounding yourself, walking barefoot on the grass, or getting grounding sheets.
Mm.
And that's another whole subject, but you can get
Getting what
sheets,
sheet?
grounding sheets. You can buy sheets that are you plug it into a grounding outlet, and it will take your positive ions, which is bad. The negative ions are good for us. It's
Ah,
the opposite of what people would think. Positive ions build up and they distress our immune system. So when you sleep on these grounding sheets, they can drain out all those positive ions while you sleep so that you're back to your normal balance of ions in your body. This is why taking a shower or taking a bath or swimming in a pool calms you because, or a waterfall, that calms you because those are negative ions and you're surrounded by negative
ah,
ions. So if you do things to create more negative ions in your life, such as salt lamps, they create negative ions. So there's techniques, and I have those in my book. You can do this helps counterbalance the electromagnetic field attacks that we're getting from. Actually, if you sit in a room, you've got electrical field all around you.
right.
But we need electricity. I'm okay with the computer. I'm okay with my iPhone. I'm okay with all of that stuff. That's the world we live in. So we just have to learn how to live with it in a healthy way.
I love that. I love that. And the fact that you got information though, you didn't just you've done research and
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
some of this in your book as well?
I do have some of in my book, and there's always more. I wrote my book, I think, 3 years ago, and there's a lot more that's come out since then.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
This is exciting and that's very relevant to our times.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And for those of us that are trying to put our phones away from us when we sleep and everything. And so, how can people find you? How can they keep up with you? What's the best way to reach you?
I have a website, elliehadsall.com,
Okay,
and
great. We'll have that in the link.
I do some long distance counseling. Not a lot. I do counseling with Zoom, but I don't do as much as I did because my life is so full in so many other ways. I'm really trying to focus on my writing now, so I'm not doing as much as I did. But I do counseling personally with local people, but I'm always happy to email. They can contact me through my website.
So they have a contact form on your website
Mhm.
that they
Yeah,
can contact you from. Are
yeah.
you on LinkedIn or anything like that?
I'm on
Or
LinkedIn. I'm not active
okay,
on LinkedIn, but I have my information on LinkedIn to reach me
okay.
and to get. Mhm.
So the best way to reach you is really through your website.
Yeah,
They
that's
can
correct.
contact you through the form and ask you some more questions if
Hmm.
they have.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanna thank you so much for taking your generous time today to
You're
and your
welcome.
wisdom that have you've built up over many years and shared with us,
Thank you.
and I'm super excited to have you back again and talk about more of these types of ways that people can have the abundance in their life on a regular basis, mentally and physically
Mm.
and financially, and
I know you don't ask for this, but thank you for what you do because I know the journey you have taken to get to where you are now. You are the real thing. You're authentic. You're
Aw.
real, and you've lived everything that you share is something that you've personally experienced, and you share from your open heart. And I just love seeing what you're doing. I just hope other people are inspired to pick up and do the same thing. It's great.
Oh, that's so wonderful. The inspiration in me sees the inspiration in you for sure. Anyway, thank you so much, and I look forward to talking again.
Okay. Thank you.